Warning, the following is a review of the book American Century, originally published by DC Comics Mature Readers imprint Vertigo. Although we will not be showing any of the scenes depicting nudity in this book, there will still be several scenes containing many sexual references, depictions of graphic violence, and foul language, including the use of several ethnic and religious slurs. Viewer discretion is advised.
The end of World War II saw an unprecedented amount of economic growth in the United States. Thanks to all the destruction in Europe, many young men were able to come home and immediately find high-paying careers in the manufacturing industry, or they were able to use the government's GI Bill to attend college and achieve an even higher-paying career.
This in turn led to a population growth, aka the baby boom, and movement out of large urban areas to suburban housing plots. Soon there would be 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish.
That is, of course, unless you happen to be, say, a person of color, LGBTQ+, a woman, or, well, pretty much anything other than a heterosexual cisgendered white guy.
Yes, there are people who look back on the 1950s as this idyllic era where $2,000 could get you a house, candy only cost a nickel, and $8 could get you enough crack to last the whole week. Of course, they wind up skipping over things like the very open and public racial discrimination and sexual harassment, the public smoking, elevating tension with the Soviet Union, lead to the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation, aka the Cold War, domestic spying, and perhaps most disturbing of all, the fact that bowling, yes, bowling, was the 3rd most popular sport on television.
In 2001, the creative team of Howard Chaykin and David Tishman pitched to DC Vertigo a series that would skewer the facade of the 1950s by following a down-on-his-luck war veteran who would flee the country and ultimately slowly wind up morphing into a pulp adventure hero in the vein of Milton Caniff's Steve Canyon comic strip. Today we're looking at the first volume of that series. This is American Century Volume 1, Scars and Stripes.
Pilot Harry Block pops an amphetamine pill before taking off from Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Meanwhile, back at the Block residence, Harry's wife Beth has someone coming in for a landing. Yes, the Block's marriage hasn't been the same since Harry returned from the war. Not only has he failed to, rise to the occasion, driving Beth into the arms of their neighbor Frank, but overall Harry is withdrawn, depressed, and content to just work out in the punching bag in the basement. That all changes after Harry's next flight when he comes home to a surprisingly warm and caring Beth who's prepared a full-course meal with peach cobbler for dessert. It all becomes clear when Harry notices a letter from the draft board informing him to report for service in Korea. This proves to be the straw that breaks the camel's back as Harry immediately begins implementing a new plan. The next day, Harry says goodbye to Beth and stops off at the bank to pick up some hidden money and a gun from a safe deposit box. He makes his way to O'Hare, where he beats up his boss and steals a small plane. The Air Force pursues Harry, ultimately shooting him down over Lake Michigan. Harry Block is now dead.
Well, okay, he's not really dead. I mean, killing off your main character 10 pages in the first story isn't exactly conducive to long-term storytelling success, now is it?
2 months after his supposed death, Harry makes his way to Puerto Barrios, Guatemala. He settles in and soon meets a man named Juan Ramirez. Juan works as an exporter of Guatemalan goods and is in need of a pilot who can avoid authorities during delivery. Harry Kraft, as he's now calling himself, accepts the employment opportunity as the village is graced with an appearance by Rosita DeSantis, First Lady of Guatemala. Harry makes good money over the next few months and even manages to settle into Puerto Barrios. He strikes up a friendship with a local cobbler named Jorge Ferrer, who fills him in on the political happenings in the town. Harry even begins to regain his sexual potency by constantly hooking up with a prostitute named Carla Esperanza.
No, I'm not generalizing here. Carla is a sex worker.
However, things overall in Guatemala aren't exactly spectacular as the newly empowered socialist government is being threatened by a military insurgency being led by a general with backing from the Central Intelligence Agency. All of this is being done to protect corporate plantations owned by American companies. Harry's been told that he's smuggling bananas, but he can't help but notice that the packages are heavier and noisier than the fruit is being known for.
I should point out that this series is playing pretty fast and loose with history here. I mean, The story begins in 1949 with Harry being drafted in the Korean War almost a year before that started. Also, the events in Guatemala here didn't really happen until 1954, so again, there's pretty much a time skip going on there. Also, yes, these are real-life people being depicted, but the names are purely fictional.
Harry thinks that he can do his best to stay out of the events, but the CIA winds up crashing one of Harry's smuggling drops. The buyers wind up pointing the CIA in the direction of Harry, Juan, and Jorge in Guatemala. The next day, Harry arrives at the park for his daily chess game with Jorge, only to find the cobbler missing. Figuring that Jorge's pregnant wife must have gone into labor, Harry returns to Carla and the two begin having sex throughout the night. However, the lovemaking session winds up getting interrupted when Jorge's corpse winds up falling into the room. The penis has been removed and shoved down the victim's throat.
Corky?
Harry goes to investigate Jorge's shoe repair shop and finds a key hidden in one of the pairs of shoes. It's then that Harry is confronted by what appears to be KGB agents, so he swallows the key to avoid detection. The Russians prepare to torture Harry, but he manages to fight his way to freedom and pass the key a few hours later. Meanwhile, the CIA meets with the leader of the revolution, General Zavala. The agency has someone literally on the inside who says DeSantis is at his weakest. However, the general has a literal take-no-prisoners approach, meaning there's going to be a lot of bloodshed. That being said, this informant seems to have a little too much power, so they need to be taken out immediately. The CIA approaches Harry Kraft with the knowledge that they know who he really is, even though his name is really Harry Block. They've managed to use Carla as leverage, as she's been working with the agency in a different way, and Harry needs to take out this new informant, who is none other than the First Lady of Guatemala herself, Rosita DeSantis.
Okay, like I said before, while there are some figures in Guatemalan history like this, I believe the DeSantis are based more on Juan and Eva Perón of Argentina. In particular, Rosa DeSantis is based on Eva Perón, as they seem to have the same appearance and mannerisms.
It turns out that Rosita has been funding the arms smuggling operation that Javier Ramirez has been running and that Harry has been part of. She's doing this in an attempt to gain more political power and thus push a more socialist agenda, the kind that actually helps people, not the Soviet Union's kind. She's even gone as far as to stage a couple of assassination attempts on her husband to garner sympathy to little avail. Harry is dispatched to take out Rosita DeSantis, and she's actually been expecting this to happen for quite some time. Of course, that doesn't mean they can't just have sex first. Unfortunately, the super happy fun time is interrupted by the beginning of a revolution which will now not have a chance to be televised. President DeSantis sends Rosita out of the country while he deals with the rebels, who soon wind up overwhelming and decapitating him. Rosita does manage to sneak across the Nicaraguan border by posing as a refugee. Meanwhile, Harry encounters one of the KGB agents who reveals that this was all a plot by the CIA and that he was undercover. The dying agent points Harry over towards the CIA's operational headquarters, where he sees Carla entertaining some of the troops. Javier Ramirez pops up and manages to get Harry access to a jeep in order to get back to the States. However, Harry has one last piece of revenge to take as he pilots his plane into the hotel room of the lead agent on this, Agent Summers. Harry then makes a brief stop at Puerto Barrios and Jorge's shoe repair shop, where he finds a hidden cache of... Well, Harry then books it back to the United States of America as Zavala is installed as President of Guatemala.
And that concludes our look at American Century Volume 1, Scars and Stripes. How was it? Well, I do think this does a real good job of being a fun, pulpy action-adventure series full of twists and turns. It's definitely evocative of those things, and like I said, it does a lot of that with some great characterization, some good artwork, and just some good overall kind of fun adult storytelling. If there is a drawback, though, there are times this can be a little confusing, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, so please don't take this entirely the wrong way. I don't mean to offend, but there are a few characters I kind of confused. I confused Harry's friend Jorge with his employer Javier. See what I mean? They didn't do a good job of trying to separate the two. I mean, they basically look almost exactly alike. I mean, they're not twin brothers or anything, so it doesn't really make much sense to do that. Also, there's a few kind of dangling little plot threads here and there. There's a brief moment where we're following a drag queen lounge singer that doesn't really add to the story at all, except to pad it out more. And again, the CIA agents are a little droll at sometimes, too. Also, this book is well out of print, unfortunately. It's not even available on Comixology or possibly even DC's subscription service thing. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's DC Universe. But still, it's, like I said, not widely available anymore, and unfortunately that's what really keeps it from me giving a full recommendation. I'm going to give American Century Volume 1 Scars and Stripes a B. Again, it's not bad. I actually rather enjoy it. It was one of my favorite go-to reads back in the day, but unfortunately, like I said, it's just not really available anymore, so I can't give it a huge recommendation. And with that, let's see what we're doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.
And, in case you're wondering, these are peanut butter cookies that are like half dipped in chocolate, so they got like a little bit of a shell on the outer part here. Probably should have put these in the fridge before I started cracking them open to use in this show.